We're going to begin right at 7 o'clock, and for those of you who were on a little bit earlier, this may be a bit of a repeat, but welcome. If you go to the upper right-hand corner of your screen, there's a tab, Handouts. We've loaded up a handout for you to download. It's 10 social media tips for your college applicant. Pretty insightful. It's been published by the IECA. And we're going to open up the Q&A. There's also a tab, so you can type in questions as we go. What I'll try to do, though, is get through this and leave a few minutes at the end and open up your mics. So if you do have questions, we can take it then, but feel free to ask a question via this chat space during the presentation. As I said earlier, one of the things I've noticed from giving this is that sometimes the questions will be answered later on in the presentation. So I'm just about ready to begin, and I'll start with an introduction. My name is Alan Katzman. I founded a company called Social Assurity 6 years ago, and the idea here was that a lot of people, I'm seeing a chat here that the download is not working on the handouts. And why is that? Let me just check before we begin. It was working before. You know what we can do if you're having trouble? Okay. Here's what we'll do. I'm going to have the email of everybody who's on the call. So I will just, after this, send it's a PDF document, and I'll send it as an attachment to all the people who are on the call tonight. And we could just forget about the technical difficulties. We're going to get started. So again, my name is Alan Katzman, and Social Assurity was formed to help students, high school students and college students, use social media to help take control of their digital narrative, to tell their story, and to help them stand out for college admissions, academic and athletic scholarships, grad schools, internships, and employment. In the 6.5 years that we've been doing this, there has been a lot of changes, and we've done a lot of research, and I'm looking forward to getting started here. So I'm just going to start with a real basic, because we've got parents on the line. And I don't think anything can be truer than this statement, right? Handing a teen this machine and calling it a phone is like handing them a Ferrari and saying it's a stereo. I mean, this is just so much more than a phone. It is a powerful computer. It is a powerful communications device. It's digital. And as parents, we have to take a little bit of time to understand what it is that we're giving our children. And the numbers just fascinate me. Pew Research does amazing work in this area with social media and with teen use. So last year, in one of their real deep dives, 97% of 13 to 17-year-olds are using at least one of the 7 major social media platforms, all right, which shouldn't come as a surprise. We're all parents. We know that. But the amount of time they're spending is mind-boggling. And these numbers are from teens that were part of the survey. So 45% of teens self-describe that they're online almost constantly. And every single time they post or they comment, it's digital, and it leaves, as you've heard in the term, digital footprint. And it's never going to disappear. So the sooner that we can help our kids understand how this works, right, the better off we're going to be sleeping as parents, but also the better off they're going to be long term. So, I'm going to put this out to you. What are the 2 most popular social media apps among teens today? And I think, most of us get this right, but I think it's just important to understand where they're spending their time. And they're spending their time on Snapchat and Instagram. And you can throw YouTube in there as well. YouTube is very, very popular, but there's a debate: is YouTube really a social media platform? I think it is, but it kind of is off on its own. But Snapchat and Instagram are where our kids are today. They're not on Facebook. They're really not on Twitter, and they're certainly not on LinkedIn, as we probably know. And I've said I've been doing this for 6 years. And when I first started giving these speeches, the apps, the troubling apps, the ones that teens knew about, but parents didn't, and where a lot of the bad behavior was happening, was Yik Yak, After School, and Ask.fm. They don't exist anymore. In 2017, the big three were Vine, Musical.ly, and Kick. Well, neither Vine nor Musical.ly exist anymore. But Kick is still problematic and is still out there. And now in 2019, right, the top four are TikTok, which is in the news all the time because it's owned by the Chinese government. And actually, it bought out Musical.ly. So it's a very, very compelling platform, and teens seem to love it. But there are issues with it. Then you have House Party, Meet Me, Discord. I mean, all these are designed for the teenage mind. And, this is where bullying is happening. This is where kids mistakenly believe that they're anonymous so they can get away with anything or say anything. And, I would take a deep dive into these apps, but in a year from now, they're all going to be different. So we have to kind of begin the discussion about social media at a little bit of a higher level. And I've come up with these. So as a parent, and as a parent of teens, you have to hammer these 3 essential rules into your student's head. They're never anonymous. Now, they're being told that they're anonymous, and they may be anonymous to the person they're talking to, but they're not anonymous to the app. Right? Their identity can be and is known. Number 2, posts never disappear. They never do. I mean, Snapchat grew to be what it was because they falsely promised that the stuff disappears. But it never did. In fact, they were sued by the FTC for false advertising, and they had to pay a very hefty penalty. But you ask your teen if those snaps disappear, they'll say, sure. And if you're never anonymous and if posts never disappear, they're discoverable. And there may be varying degrees of difficulty in discovering them. Not everything is so easy, but they're there and they have a trail and they can be identified. So hammer these home because, you'll see later on in this conversation, social media for your kids is an important part of their social life these days. And it's hard to fathom, but it is. But they have to be armed with this knowledge and not believe what their friends are saying or what they're being marketed to. So, okay. This is a slide back in the spring. I'm sorry, I had to convert this to a PDF, so it's not showing the under picture. But there was a Snapchat, Orange County, California. A group of teens took a Snapchat of themselves playing beer pong with the red cup shaped in the form of a swastika, and they were giving the Heil salute. And somebody posted that on Snapchat. Somebody grabbed a screenshot of it and posted it to Twitter. All of their names were identified from that photo. And then, as you can see here on the screen, and I'm sorry for not being able to go through the sequence, I should have double checked when I had to convert this to a PDF, but it got picked up by the news. And, this is, hey, we thought this would disappear. We thought only, our friends would see it. And these students were outed. These students, if you Google their names, that picture will come up. And it's something that their family is going to have to deal with for many, many years to come. Snapchats will not disappear. Then there's another trend happening, and Instagram is such a monster now. I mean, it's a good platform, but most teens have two accounts. They have their real Instagram account, which is the one you probably see as parents, where they're curating an image of themselves for others to see. But then there's what they call Finsta, or fake Instagram accounts, behind an alias, and that's where they're kind of letting loose with their friends, right? They set the privacy settings thinking that it keeps it private, but as you're going to see in a couple of slides, it doesn't. So there are especially teen girls, having the Finsta account is incredibly popular. So one of the things when I speak at schools or I speak to parents, I think this is a really important slide. And before you have the conversation with your child, ask them this question. And these slides are available to you if you send me an email. Again, my email will come up at the very end. I can send these slides to you so you have it. But ask them this question. The only way to absolutely keep a post private on social media is to, and my bet would be, before they hear some of this stuff, that they would think 6. They can use Snapchat. They can post anonymously. They could ratchet up their privacy settings. I guess I can skip post, I don't have to post it. I can delete it. So yeah, I think all of these are correct. But there's only one right answer. The only right answer here is number 4. It's the only way to keep a post private. And your kid has to understand that. And you're going to see why as we move on. So I'm actually heading out to California in the morning, and I'm speaking there tomorrow at a student wellness conference for independent high schools in the country. And for the first time, this is a brand new slide that I'm giving to you, I realize there's 4 essential rules, beyond anonymity and posts never disappear and all posts are discovering. I think it's really important for students to understand that people are listening. And, they're not posting in a vacuum. And let me give you an example of this. And it's a little bit old, but it is the best. Here you have, granted from 2014, but this technology is only bigger and better today. You have a high school senior just tweeting out, "Can Michigan State tell me if I got accepted or not already?" Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Twitter, right, she didn't tweet at Michigan State, at their user handle, which would have gotten right into their feed. She just used the word Michigan and state. And she sent that tweet out at 10:36 a.m. 2 hours later, Michigan State University admissions responded to her. Called her out at SamJam. "Thanks for your patience." Our children today have to understand that every time they reference a school, a company, add to the list, that person's seeing it. I have a small company, Social Assurity. Every time my name is mentioned anywhere on social media, I get an email. And I don't pay anything for that service. People are listening. Now, as you're going to see as we get into this discussion, what Sophia did was not bad. She was demonstrating interest. She really wanted to go to Michigan State. But unfortunately for her, this is what her Twitter bio looked like at that point in time. Excuse me. She was not putting her best foot forward. She was not communicating through photos and through her words that she was Michigan State material. I followed her. She ended up not getting into any school. She ended up going to a beautician school in Chicago. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I think this actually probably damaged her chances of getting into Michigan State because she called attention to herself. She probably didn't even realize she was calling attention to herself. And this is what happened. So they have to understand people are listening. The technology is there and it's cheap. And the other thing that we all have to understand, that I think even us as adults, our personal social media activities and our online presence do reflect upon the reputation of the groups and organizations we associate with or we represent online. Whether it's you as their family, their community, church, school, or employer. And so people have a pecuniary interest in your personal social media activities. Because at some point, if you're really off the road here, they're going to make the connection and they're going to attribute that behavior to that organization. So from a reputation management standpoint, our children have to be armed with this information. We're going to get to college soon enough. And this is interesting as parents. This is such an interesting quote from the head basketball coach at Clemson. All right. There are kids I don't recruit because I see their social media. And we know that to be a fact. If your child is an athlete or they're thinking of playing at any Division I, II, or III, that athletic department, those coaches will be looking at their social media. But this is where it gets interesting. It not only tells me about the player, it also tells me that their parents are obviously not aware of what's going on in their teen's world. And I don't feel like I'm going to have that backing from a parent if I have an issue with that child. I mean, that's a really powerful message coming from a very important coach in the world of college sports. And I think as parents, and it's really hard for us to understand social media and understand the world that our kids are growing up in. But this is really important stuff. It's showing who we are to people who've never met us. And again, you're never anonymous, it never disappears, and it's all discoverable and people listening, right? So how does this work now? Why am I going through all this for college? Well, here it is. All right. Over 75% of colleges and 90% of employers will view applicant social media as part of their admission and hiring decision process. Now, I'm going to explain the varying reasons why at the college level, because it's not what you think it is. But the most fascinating issue for me is that 57% of employers won't even grant an interview to applicants they can't find online. Now, to be clear, that's 57% of the 90% that say they do look at social media. So it's somewhat under. But think about that. You need to have a presence. People are expect to find you. They want to learn about you from what you're posting. It's kind of like the interview or the cover letter. But it's such a fascinating data point that I'd rather have them see bad stuff than nothing at all. Because what's bad? But that's interesting that what our teens are facing today. And this came from knowledge at Wharton. Again, why we want to start them younger, start good habits, to start creating a digital narrative that tells their story. Okay? Middle paragraph. Now, the extent to which individuals have established a strong and compelling online presence is having an impact on who gets the interview and job. Actively building a digital footprint that proves presence in a community or expertise in a field, critically important. And this is knowledge at Wharton. This is real stuff, and this was backed up with data. But again, it's the world your children will be inheriting from us. So now back to college. Now we're going to be on college for a bit, and it's going to get really interesting for you. The numbers are fascinating to me. So the bottom two bullet points. So this is from the American Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admissions Officers. 75% of colleges either monitor social media as part of the admissions decision-making or will review social media brought to their attention. And of that 75%, 25% do so regularly and routinely. And private not-for-profit institutions, the four-year liberal arts schools, are more likely than other types to do so, and that's going to make more sense to you in a few minutes. And at the law school level, business school level, medical school level, the numbers are even higher. It's happening. And here's the reason it's happening, okay? I think one of the biggest mistakes we make as experts, right, in the college admissions, college planning industry is that we refer to it as the college admissions process. Well, there is over 2,000 accredited four-year colleges in the United States, and 1,300 or 1,400 of them are part of the U.S. News and World Report ranking. And I can tell you, every single college has a different admissions process. There is not a college admissions process. The admissions process at Harvard is different than the admissions process at Haverford. Okay? The admissions process at Penn State is very different than the admissions process at Swarthmore. So I think we have to understand as parents and that it's all different, and you can't blanket. You can't blanket it. It is what it is. So I'm going to point just here to the Ivy League schools, not to scare you, but this is frightening. But this is really going to make the point. So if you look across at, this is for the last admission cycle, the class of 2023. The blue and red are the number of applicants, blue being the applicants who applied regular decision, red being the applicants who applied early action, binding early decision. The smaller columns next to it, the lime green, is the number of students who were accepted regular, and the purple accepted early. Look at the numbers. I mean, there's no way that they could be making these decisions based on grades and test scores and a 500-word essay. Because most of these kids, and if you do the research, Ivy League admissions officers will say, we could, from our applicant pool, we could accept 3 complete classes, each one being just as talented from these applicants. So what are they looking at? Well, first, let's take a step back. And this is happening across the board. GPA and standardized test scores are not delivering the actionable data colleges need to differentiate applicants. And if you look at the left, from 1966 to 2016, in 1966, 11% of high school students, right, had A averages. In 2016, 55%. They can't tell the difference. Same thing with test scores. In just the last 5 years, the number of students, right, who are increasing their test scores is going up and up. It's like the game of bowling, right? The best you can do is 300. Then what? It's really, we have to open up our minds. This is what the schools are facing. Everybody looks the same. How do we make the distinctions? Well, I believe you can use social media to make the distinction. And so does the Dean of Admissions at Harvard. He was asked point blank if Harvard looks at applicants' social media. And what's really important here, he said, if someone sends us a link of any kind, if it seems relevant to making the best possible case for that person's admission, we will certainly take a look at it. Why? They have to. It helps them distinguish. So we counsel all of our students to embed their LinkedIn URL right on their application and invite the reviewer to look. And they're looking. They're looking at a much greater rate than people even want to admit. I'll explain why. But first, I speak to thousands of students a year. Students the age of your kids. And they always tell me this. Mr. Katzman, I know colleges and employers will be looking at my social media, so I've never posted anything that can embarrass me. Well, there's 2 problems with this. Number one, and we do know this is a fact, that this should really read, so I've never posted anything that wasn't anonymous or didn't disappear that could embarrass me, right? Or I haven't posted anything on Facebook that could embarrass me. That's point number one. But point number two is having nothing to hide is not the same as having something to show. It just isn't, right? People want to find something. And you can supplement your application with information you can't possibly fit on your college application that will set your student apart. There's an organization that I've been involved in called the Character Collaborative, which is made of deans of admissions of a lot of schools, which you're going to see on the next slide. And what they're trying to do is get character as an element of college admissions. Okay. And you know, the assumption here is that it seems like what parents perceive to be the requirements of college admissions is having a great power over the way we raise our children. And I think that's in a lot of ways correct. But what they're saying is that what we're getting right now are overstressed overachievers. We need to balance this out. We want students who have balanced lives, who, you know, have commitment, who are doing one or two things but are really committed to that, are using their spare time instead of taking 18 AP courses. Maybe they're using that time to give back to the community. And this is an eye chart. I'm sorry, but these are the schools that have signed off. It includes all the Ivy League schools, Stanford, large public universities, and most of the you know, liberal arts schools, four-year schools, and it's pretty much from across the country. And this is college presidents and deans of admissions signing off on this. The other thing that you'll see, and I really encourage you, if you have children who are approaching, you know, juniors or going through the process right now, check out the websites of these schools. And we're going to be talking about that. But the fact is they're looking at character. They want good people on campus. Especially the smaller the college, the more important that becomes, right? Because it's a smaller student body, and if you get some really bad apples in there, it ruins the experience for everybody. But they're looking for students who are going to fit in. And colleges are a business. They're a big business. And when they talk about fit, all right, not only is it better for the student, but it's better for the college because they're going to get 8 semesters, or if the college had their choice, 10 semesters of tuition, right? And the student's not going to quit, and there won't be empty seats. So, you know, character and fit are a business decision, and it's happening all the time. And character counts. So 58% of college admissions personnel said they agreed that a student's service has a positive impact on his or her acceptance. And I don't know how else you get your community service on a college application other than through highlighting it through social media. Otherwise, it's too limited. Otherwise, it's just a bullet point. And they're not looking for these week trips in the summer, you know, to work with some orphans for a couple of days in South America and then come back. That's not what they're looking for. They're looking for genuine interest. Here's a student who built a LinkedIn profile that highlighted she started a not-for-profit. She started raising funds for Alzheimer's research because her grandmother was stricken by it, passed away from it. And what her and her friend did is that they would buy cases of tennis balls at Costco or something like that, then bring it to local tennis clubs and sell it. And the profit they donated to Alzheimer's research. And they did it for 3 years. This student put her URL, her LinkedIn URL, on her college application. The college that she wanted to go to did look, and that's why we like LinkedIn, because it does give you that feedback. And she was accepted with a very nice merit aid package to lure her in. Now, she didn't get in only for this, but she was able to separate herself and show that she has high character and she has commitment. And again, I don't know how you can tell this story fairly in just a 500-word essay, but we'll get into that in a bit. Colleges are also, if you noticed, if you're going through the process now, colleges are actively engaging with their prospects via social media. And there was an article a couple of weeks ago in the Washington Post about how important that is. for schools. They're measuring those engagements. They're marketing to where their customer base is. And if you go to their websites, they're always asking you to connect with the school or departments on social media. All right. It helps them control their message, but more importantly, they're measuring engagement. These are some of the backdoor tools that colleges are using to measure interest, to measure what we would call likelihood to enroll. All right. A school, to move up in the U.S. News and World Report chart, right, you have to increase your selectivity rate. So you have to appear to be more selective. Well, there's only two ways to do that and still fill your seats, right? You got to generate interest and get a lot of applications, right? But that's kind of maxed out. So now what they're doing is that they're using data to get insights, and they're assigning a probability to enroll to students. So they're not going to send acceptance letters to students who they don't think are will enroll if accepted. It's big data, it's predictive analytics. And we're going to take a look at what this looks like. So this is a data point of a typical college enrollment management system. In business, we call it CRMs. And yeah, I get this, consumer database info, population demographic data, zip codes. They buy data from the College Board when your kids take the SAT or the ACT. They get financial aid info. Because remember, what they want to, their goal is to fill every seat with students who will pay, right, full tuition, and who will stay in that seat through to graduation, and who will enroll if accepted. So if you look at the 9 o'clock and I guess the 11 o'clock positions, they're also measuring social media interactions and web page interactions. Why? They have to get their numbers down. I'm going to just run the slide. I mean, the numbers are pretty high here. So 76% of colleges currently have CRM systems. And if you look here, does your institution use any type of enrollment projection to determine undergraduate admissions? And the numbers are staggering. They're pretty big for large public universities, but if you start looking at the private, not-for-profit, that's 90% are looking, and they have to. They have to keep their reputations up in the U.S. News polls. They have to be taking that into account. And here's what it looks like. I mean, these are actual screenshots of some of the CRM enrollment management systems that they're looking at. And, what they're giving the reviewer, the enrollment manager at the school, is what is the likelihood that students will enroll by life cycle? And I know you probably can't see it on the bottom, but it's the same thing. Probability to enroll. And also connecting to the kids' social links. It's fascinating stuff. I took a deep dive in this earlier this year, and it just fascinating on how much of the Amazon mentality is going on right now in the college admissions world. So there is a rising importance of student fit and student success, and social media is coming into play in 3 distinct areas, right? Enrollment management and yield, which we just discussed, and I'm going to give you more details on that in a moment. Application review, having them differentiate themselves through their achievements, their service, a deep dive into their skills, talents, and activities, and then for scholarships and merit aid, right? Are they leaders? Are they of good character? Schools do not want to give money to students who are going to embarrass them, right? That's what I said earlier, reputation management. It comes into play in all these areas. So the way I view it in bringing this together before we actually get into the social media is that we know that 25% of college admissions officers are looking at social media regularly and routinely. And we also know that of that 25%, most of that 25% is smaller private liberal arts colleges. It makes perfect sense. They don't have that many applicants. It's very, very important for them to be right in who they're picking. But yet we also know that 70% of college admissions officers view social media as fair game, which means they're not going to proactively go and Google your kid. But if your kid invites them to look at their Instagram or invites them to look at their LinkedIn to learn more about their interest in digital photography, fashion design, art history, or my service, my interest in robotics, you know what we're seeing? We're seeing about 70% of schools are clicking. A little bit under. Let's say we're seeing, 60, this last cycle saw about 65%, which is, again, why we like LinkedIn, because it gives us that feedback. And we call this line opportunity. The students who are doing this and the students who are inviting schools to look are getting admitted and getting merit aid at a much higher rate than the reported numbers, because we're giving schools what they want to differentiate from the grades and test scores. Here's another way of looking at it. Again, there's not just one college admissions process, and this kind of breaks it down. So this is the kind of likelihood of social media review. Large public universities, Penn State, University of Florida, UCLA, they're not looking at the app review level, even if the student's inviting them. It's just not happening. But as you go across, character and fit, the elite publics, the Northwesterns, Ivy Leagues, Dukes, that's really important. But then you have over 1,000 four-year schools that are test optional. The holistic schools. They're looking. They're looking. And they're not looking to reject your student. They're looking to learn more about them. And as you go up on the blocks, so from the bottom up, you've got, the enrollment yield, which we just discussed briefly, and then scholarship. So, this kind of, again, Harvard's not the same as Swarthmore, right? And they're gonna be looking at different things, and there's different elements that they're gonna put different weights on. Go to the webpage. They're very transparent in what they're looking for. I can't recommend that highly enough. So now let's get into social media. So this is a typical teen cycle of social media. They're curating what they post to help define their persona to their friends, colleagues, peers. All right, and this is from a lot of research. I mean, it defines that the number of follows or the number of likes they get to a post is defining social status in a very strange way today. We can't interfere with that. If you tell your kid, hey, you just won this award at school, right? You should post it because I heard this guy talk about posting social media. They're not going to do it because it's going to interfere with this cycle. So let them have fun with their friends and let them do what they got to do with their friends. You're never anonymous. It never disappears. It's discoverable. People are listening. Now go have fun with your friends. But the idea here is to create separate social media channels for what I call their future audiences. Right? College, employers. It's different content. And it's not content to entertain or to define their persona for friends, but it's to tell their story to people who they've never met who are going to be making important decisions about them. And there's opportunity there. Facebook is huge, but kids don't like Facebook. So you can set up a presence. You can publish photo essays about your travels or about other interests. You can use LinkedIn. It's not going to interfere with your friends. You can have a separate Instagram account. So it's, we kind of want to bifurcate this. And it's also important for students to learn how to populate these feeds, right, that colleges are monitoring and measuring. And I'm sorry this slide's a bit busy, but in the lower right-hand corner, this is really important where it says Duke. Every college, if you go to the admissions page, the undergraduate admissions page, there's going to be a tab, and some are harder to find than others, but it's going to be request more info. And this one is called prospect registration form. Have your kids fill these out with their name, with the email address that they're going to be using for applying to college. Because this is writing right into their enrollment management system. So what you're giving the school is that you're giving an identity to your student through the email, through the IP address, and you become a qualified prospect. And from there, the algorithms will search for your email. So they'll know when you follow the school on LinkedIn, which is the upper right, or Facebook on the left. Give them the information that they're looking for to get that likelihood to enroll quotient up. And we're not dealing with humans here. We're dealing with algorithms. LinkedIn. LinkedIn is, one of the things that we have the biggest problem doing is convincing students that LinkedIn isn't just for old people looking for jobs. And LinkedIn is not your resume, right? LinkedIn is as much your resume as, if you made a movie about a book, it was just, someone reading the book on stage and you were filming it. It's two different mediums. And what we're trying to do, and what we teach our students to do, if you look at Andrew Ward, and this was an experiment, we had somebody go to the student and say, create a LinkedIn profile. And this is what he came up with. Versus students who are taught how to tell their story on the right. Big difference. This is a learned skill. It's funny. Once the students can get the vision, right, then their digital nativism really works. They can really build it. They get into this stuff. And here's a couple of more examples. Here's a student, Devin. He actually got accepted. He started this September at Dartmouth, and he's a writer. And he put up all of his writing on his LinkedIn, where he was published in his blogs and everything like that. And he invited Dartmouth to look. They did look, and he was accepted last year. He couldn't have done that. He couldn't have done this on his college application. There's no way. Now, granted, maybe if he had his own website, he could have put that link in there as well, but he did it on LinkedIn. And, he's got just something that he's going to be able to build now over his experience at Dartmouth and have a pretty compelling digital presence coming down the road. Here's a senior right now. She's actually applying to schools, and a little bit different than the other students. She's a writer. She's a performer, a singer. And you would think, well, shouldn't she be on YouTube? Shouldn't she, LinkedIn doesn't really do that. But look, it kind of does, because if you look down here, you're able to put up links of your videos, and, it's mass media. So all of her videos of her singing or performing or people performing plays she's written is right there. And what's interesting about this student is that she has not yet submitted her college applications. But she did register on websites of the colleges she was interested in, and then she followed them on LinkedIn, and she got unsolicited emails. Right? The schools reached out to her because it triggered the algorithms. And they, what they offered is to waive the application fee, a streamlined application outside of the Common App, automatic entry into their merit aid pool. And there's only one reason for it. She triggered an algorithm that said this kid is likely to enroll. She's interested. I get passionate about this. I apologize. So here's another, as parents, that we can teach our kids. So here's two Instagram accounts. One on the left, one on the right. You want to be following colleges using the one on the left. The one on the left is a student who's interested in architecture. And he put together a portfolio of photos of human-made structures that most impress him, with a little caption as to why. This is what he used to engage with colleges, to record, to follow colleges and to comment on some of the colleges on Instagram. But we have a lot of kids who are doing that with using, like, I know it's purposely making a statement to you, but why would you follow colleges from the one on the right? That's like going to a college interview straight from the gym without showering and changing your clothes. It's not the story you want to be telling. There's a huge difference. And yet they're not stupid, our kids. They just don't understand. Nobody's taken the time to teach them. And we have to. Just another example. This is Twitter. And you have the one on the left, which is a high school student who's using Twitter to tell his story, to engage with people who share his interest. And the one on the right, Lindsay, there's nothing wrong with it. But it doesn't say anything. I mean, there's nothing bad about it. She's just being a teenage girl. And that's fine. But I wouldn't be following colleges from this account. And the college demographic is very, very active on Twitter. And you can really get that likelihood to enroll number up. This is just as an aside. I'm pretty much right on time. We are going to open this up to questions. I'll open up some mics. Hopefully there won't be feedback. I'm almost done. But I really encourage you, if you really want to learn a lot about schools and what you should be expected to pay, just Google the school's name. If you're doing it from a desktop or a notebook, on the right, there'll be, what you'll see here where it says St. Mary's on the left. This will be on the right of the Google screen. It starts with basic information, a link to their websites. They give you average cost after aid, graduation rate, which you really have to look at, acceptance rate. But then you can drill down. So you can see their test scores, average. I tell most people, test scores these days is kind of like a check the box. If you hit the median, you go to the next level. It's that simple. But they also break down aid by your household income on average. So, you can kind of target what you should expect. And what I really love most is how long does it take to receive degrees, and don't have a panic attack. Received a degree in 6 years and received the award in 8 years. Oh my God. But they also rank the schools instead of the U.S. News and World Report, which I don't believe in, because schools are not a unified body. I mean, you take a university, there's, a dozen colleges within the university, and within those colleges, there's departments and, majors, and you can't tell me that the number one college in the country is number one across the board. So what Google does when you look at a college, it breaks the rankings down by department and by, various topics that might be of interest to you. So this is just St. Mary's University, a small college in San Antonio, but they have it for everyone. And it's really fundamentally important information. And with that, I'm going to thank you. Everybody pretty much stayed with me for 45 minutes. There's my email. What I will do for those who join late, I'm just going to send out the handout of the 10 tips, which will, there's some people had problems downloading it. So I'm going to open up the Q&A, and I'm also going to try to open up your mics. And if there's too much feedback, I'll shut it down and we'll have to do it by text. But if you have any questions at all, please ask them. So let's keep our fingers crossed that this will work. Okay, your mics are, now you can, if you activate your mic, you can ask the question, everybody will hear. I'm not hearing anything, so I'm assuming no questions. Or if you want, hit the Q&A and let's see, ask a question. Hopefully everybody, I don't know if everybody sees that. All right.
This is
I hear one.
Yeah. I did join you late, and I apologize for that. You may have talked about this at the beginning, but this is a service that you provide for a fee, is helping prepare the LinkedIn pages. Can you talk about that?
Okay. Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. So we work with Brian LaRoche and LaRoche Management through an organization called College Funding Coach. And we have online training materials that your student can go through. It is interactive, it's self-taught, and it walks them through every step of building a digital portfolio for college and teaching them the basics of social media. On our website, we sell the training for $600, I think, through College Funding Coach. And I think when we exit the webinar, this is going to direct you to that page. But let me just do one thing here for you. Hopefully you'll see this so we can walk it through. But if you order it or interested in it through the College Funding Coach, through Brian's organization, it's more than, I think, a 50% discount. And let me just see, bear with me. I'm going to share my screen and go. This is the page where you can go. And this is, can you just let me know if you can see this?
Yeah, I can see it.
You can?
Yes.
Okay, so then everybody can see it. So these are the 9 modules of our training. Social media helps, and this is where we're showing them that hiding or deleting your social media is not the right move, why colleges are looking, and why it's important to put out content that tells their story. Then we go into social media basics, which is, it never disappears, you're never anonymous, and we give, unfortunately, some real life examples and really help them understand how social media works. Your digital identity, this is where we kind of give them the permission to go have fun with their friends, but bifurcate, establish a digital identity for colleges and grad schools and internships and employers. Then we get into 3 modules that walk them through LinkedIn. Welcome to LinkedIn. You're building your digital portfolio, where we take them step by step on how to build the LinkedIn profiles that you saw in the presentation, and then leveraging LinkedIn, right? How do they get the most out of it? And whether it's putting their URL in their application or learning about colleges, because there's a lot of really great data on LinkedIn, we walk them through that too. Then we switch over to Twitter, and this is basically teaching them how to engage and how to network with people outside of their friends or their peer group. And this is intimidating stuff for a teen. But we like Twitter because the demographics, academia and colleges, are very, very active on Twitter. And it's really easy to engage in a conversation when you have it set up. So we teach them how to build a profile, what it should say, how they should present themselves, and then how to interact. And we bring it all together. We explain what social recruitment is, what's going to happen if somebody Googles you, what are they going to find? Why is LinkedIn important? Because it's always it's one of the first links that Google will generate, right, on a search. And so we try to put this together, and we have students, these courses have been around now for over 4 years. They're integrated. We update them constantly, so whenever your student would log on to them, they would get the updated, they would get access to the updates. It's a one-time payment. There's no maintenance. There's nothing like that. And we have students who took these courses when they were juniors or seniors in high school, and now 4 years later, they're juniors or seniors in college, and I'm still getting emails from them like, this is unbelievable. This is helping so much. So from going, from high school to college, and then from college to the workforce, these keep their relevancy. And we try to keep it broad enough. So this link is going to come up, but it's socialassurity.com, which is my company, and then / the college funding coach. But Brian will, I'm actually embarrassed because I don't know the price. So if I hit order now, oh boy. So I'll just put in, this is how we know it's Brian. And let's see. Here it goes. Sorry, this is getting slow here. So it's 200, which is a third of the price that you can get it for on our website. So this link will come up at the end of the webinar. I'd be happy to, excuse me, I'm going to get back in the room, stop sharing the screen, and we're back to where we were. But anyway, I know we're running up against the end of this. Once we exit the webinar, you'll get directed to that page. Brian's team is available to talk it through. If there are other services on our website at socialassurity.com you can check out. And again, if you want a copy of the slides tonight, send me an email at alan@socialmedia.com. If you want to email me a question, please do. And I'm here to help. We have a lot of different programs, and we could answer your questions. So unless there are any other questions, I'm ready to wrap. And I want to thank you for your time. And again, please stay in touch or direct your questions to Brian and April, and they can come back to me or deal with me directly, whatever's easiest. So I'm going to end this now. It should link to that other page, and I will be sending out an email to everybody who attended with that handout. And for those of you who were able to download it, you'll just have another copy. All right. So thank you very, very much, and I hope you enjoyed. Good evening.